Good day, everyone. A patrol car lights up behind you at 11:47 p.m. You pull over. The officer walks up to the window and says, "Have you had anything to drink tonight?" And right there, most drivers make the mistake that DUI lawyers talk about constantly. They start talking. Just 2 beers. I'm actually coming from dinner. I'm fine to drive. I only had one. I'm tired, not drunk. And what most people do not realize is that every extra sentence can become evidence. Because during a DUI stop, the officer is not just listening to what you say, they are listening to how you say it, your tone, your speed, your breathing, whether you ramble, whether your story changes, whether you sound nervous. And many drivers accidentally build the case against themselves before any field sobriety test even begins. So what do you do? What should you say? They rely on you not knowing your rights. This channel makes sure you do. Subscribe and stay informed. And if you believe more people need to see this, share it and let me know your thoughts in the comments. Can refusing to answer make things worse? And how do you avoid turning a traffic stop into a DUI arrest with your own words? Today, we're breaking down why DUI lawyers say most drivers talk too much during stops, the exact mistakes people make, and the safest legal framework to follow if you ever find yourself pulled over. Because one sentence can absolutely change the direction of the entire encounter. A lot of drivers think the roadside is the place to explain themselves. It is not. The roadside is evidence collection. That is the first thing to understand. The officer already has a reason for the stop. Maybe speeding, maybe drifting lanes, maybe a broken taillight, maybe nothing more than a minor traffic violation late at night. But once the officer suspects possible impairment, the encounter changes. Now they are looking for indicators, bloodshot eyes, odor of alcohol, slow responses, confusion, admissions. And the biggest gift many drivers hand over voluntarily is conversation. Here's how it usually happens. Where are you coming from tonight? Most people answer casually. Bar with friends, birthday party, dinner downtown. And now the officer immediately knows alcohol was probably present. Then comes the follow-up. How much did you drink? And drivers start estimating. Just a couple, maybe 3, not that much. But think about how weak those answers are legally. Just a couple is still an admission to drinking. Maybe 3 sounds uncertain, and uncertainty itself can become part of the report. The officer may later write, "The driver appeared unsure of the quantity consumed." That matters, especially once body cam footage gets reviewed later. Now, this does not mean you should be rude or aggressive. That is another huge mistake. Some people swing from over-talking to confrontation. "Why are you asking me that? You can't stop me for this. I know my rights." That usually escalates tension fast. The goal is calm, controlled, minimal. Not argumentative, not combative, not chatty. Controlled. One of the safest phrases in many DUI encounters is simple. "Officer, I prefer not to answer questions." That sentence matters because it avoids volunteering potentially incriminating statements without turning the stop into an argument. Notice what it does not say. It does not insult the officer. It does not accuse them of misconduct. It does not physically resist. It simply declines conversation. And that distinction matters. Now, laws vary depending on the state and the exact circumstances. In some situations, you may still be legally required to identify yourself, provide your driver's license, registration, and proof of insurance, or comply with lawful commands. This video is educational information, not personal legal advice. But generally speaking, there's a major difference between complying with lawful identification requirements and volunteering extra information. And most drivers do not understand that difference. Here's another common trap: nervous explanations. Watch how quickly this spirals. "Officer, I swear I'm okay. I only had one drink like 3 hours ago and I ate food. And honestly, I'm just tired because work has been crazy." That sounds terrible. Not because the driver confessed to intoxication necessarily, but because nervous rambling often looks suspicious. People think talking more makes them appear cooperative. Sometimes it does the opposite. DUI lawyers constantly point out that exhausted, anxious or frightened people can unintentionally appear impaired simply because they keep talking. Speech patterns matter during DUI investigations. So does emotional control. That's why concise answers are often safer than emotional explanations. Now let's talk about another dangerous mistake: trying to talk your way out of suspicion. Some drivers think confidence will save them. Trust me, I'm good to drive. I drive better after a few drinks. I'm totally sober. Those statements can backfire immediately, because if the officer later believes you failed a test or showed signs of impairment, those confident statements may now sound dishonest or reckless, and prosecutors notice that too. Instead of trying to convince the officer you are sober through conversation, the safer approach is usually to remain calm and avoid volunteering evidence against yourself. Another important distinction involves field sobriety tests. A lot of people think these tests are scientific roadside truth detectors. They are not. They are divided attention exercises designed to help officers observe signs of possible impairment, and officers are trained to look for clues during the tests. Balance issues, missed instructions, eye movement, coordination problems, even nervousness can affect performance. Now, here is where many drivers make another critical mistake. They keep talking during the tests. I have bad knees, I'm nervous, I'm not good at balance, I'm tired. Sometimes there may be legitimate medical explanations for physical limitations, but endless talking during the encounter can create confusion and provide additional statements that may later appear in reports. If you do have a genuine medical condition affecting balance, vision, or movement, calmly stating that once may be important, but rambling explanations usually do not help. And remember this: roadside debates rarely end roadside investigations. Trying to win the stop verbally often creates more problems. Here is another phrase that matters if the encounter becomes more serious: I exercise my right to remain silent. That phrase is powerful because it clearly communicates that you are invoking your constitutional right rather than simply acting evasive. Every part matters. I exercise my right. That signals intentional legal invocation. To remain silent, that clarifies exactly what right you are asserting. And after saying it, the safest move is usually to actually stop talking. That last part is where many people fail. They invoke silence, then keep explaining, then keep defending themselves, then keep volunteering details. Silence only works if you actually use it. Now let's discuss consent searches. During DUI stops, officers may ask questions like, "Mind if I take a look in the vehicle?" Or, "You don't have anything illegal in here, right?" Many drivers panic and immediately consent because they think refusing automatically makes them look guilty. But legally, consent changes everything. Once you voluntarily consent to a search, you may give up important legal arguments later. That is why many defense attorneys recommend calm, respectful language like, "Officer, I do not consent to any searches." Notice the structure. Officer, respectful tone. I do not consent, clear refusal, to any searches, specific and unambiguous. And just as important, do not physically interfere. Do not grab things, do not block the officer, do not make sudden movements. If an officer searches anyway, arguing physically on the roadside can make the situation much worse. Another mistake people make is sudden movement, reaching quickly, digging through bags without warning, opening the glove box unexpectedly. During nighttime stops especially, officers are extremely alert to movement, so narrate what you are doing calmly. My registration is in the glove compartment. My wallet is in my back pocket. That reduces tension and lowers the chance of misunderstandings. And one more thing that DUI lawyers constantly warn about: people trying to perform sobriety for the officer. Overly cheerful behavior, forced jokes, exaggerated confidence. Some drivers think acting extra normal will help, but exaggerated behavior can actually appear suspicious. The safest demeanor is simple: calm, polite, minimal, professional. Now, there's also confusion around chemical testing laws. Some states have implied consent laws that can trigger license suspension penalties for refusing certain post-arrest chemical tests, such as breath or blood testing. The exact consequences vary significantly by state. That is why drivers should understand that roadside field sobriety tests and official chemical testing after arrest may involve different legal considerations depending on where you live. This is not one-size-fits-all law, and that's important. Internet advice becomes dangerous when people treat every state exactly the same. But regardless of location, one principle stays remarkably consistent. Talking too much rarely helps, especially once the officer already suspects impairment. Remember, officers are trained observers. They document behavior carefully, and most DUI cases are built from small details stacked together. The driving pattern, the odor, the speech, the admissions, the movements, the statements, which is why many experienced DUI lawyers often say the strongest evidence sometimes comes directly from the driver's own mouth. So if you remember nothing else from this video, remember this framework. Stay calm, keep your hands visible, comply with lawful commands, provide required identification documents, do not make sudden movements, do not argue roadside law, do not volunteer unnecessary information, do not consent to searches if you don't want to. If questioned aggressively, you can calmly say, "Officer, I prefer not to answer questions." If things escalate further, you can say, "I exercise my right to remain silent." And if you are arrested or believe the situation is becoming criminal, you can say, "I want to speak to a lawyer." That sentence matters because it clearly invokes your right to counsel. And once again, the key is consistency. Calm words, minimal words, control